Welcome one, welcome all to another developer interview here on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Today I am joined by Sergei Kolobashkin, creative director, writer, and producer for the just released hack and slash title Wanted Dead. I am your host, Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost. Sergei, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Luke, thank you so much for having me. It's a
I'm,
great
yeah.
honor. Love
Oh,
you.
dude, thanks, man. The honor is mine. I am ecstatic that you came on. At the time we're recording this, we're just before release, and this is coming out on release day. I can only imagine the butterflies, the excitement, and the nerves kind of surrounding this. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it takes you it takes you quite a moment to realize that you're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and usually it's like the waiting is the hardest part.
Right.
I remember at TGS, when we were at TGS last year, and I thought, oh yeah, it's just 5 months from now, like 4 months from now, and the game is out. But now I'm looking at this thing like in real time as we're counting down the days,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh my god, it's like T-5, T-4,
Right.
T-3, and suddenly at the same time we start getting inquiries from the press. Oh, hey, we're doing a review, blah, blah, blah. I cannot beat this boss. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had the great preview from IGN published, I believe, 2 weeks ago, like
Right.
final preview. And I was like, oh my God, they actually get it. They actually understand what this game is all about. And I'm very excited and stressed.
I can only imagine. That was a great preview on IGN too. A lot of cool gameplay, and I've been playing the game a bit myself. When you say IGN got it and they understood it, what was it you were hoping that would click for them that you're also hoping will click for players?
Well, Wanted Dead is a throwback title,
Mhm.
and it was conceived when games like Wanted Dead were not being made. So we started shopping for the developer in 2019, and bringing up a single player Japanese hack and slash action game in 2019 sounded bonkers.
Mhm.
I mean, imagine you're pitching your project to the developer that you want to hire for the next 2 3 years to work on your game, and they're like, okay, so where's the multiplayer component?
Where's the live service? Where's
Well, this was
the
this was pre-live service, but
was this
where's
even before?
the multiplayer component? Where are the microtransactions?
Mm.
What do you mean you play as you have a female lead? I
Mhm.
mean, guys, female leads don't sell. Um, cyberpunk, you know what? Cyberpunk won't sell.
Mhm.
Japanese action games don't sell. What are you doing with your life? So these were kind of a conversation. Well, and this was pre-Japanese. This was we were still talking to European developers,
Mhm.
and essentially the elevator pitch was like, what if we had an action game that looked modern, played modern, but at the same time reminded you of say, the OG Xbox era, the
Mhm.
OG PS2 era of games.
Mhm.
Um, and people were not buying into this. They were genuinely concerned if this project could happen. And then we started shopping for a Japanese developer. And when we got to work, when we got to meet the team, and I explained the team, hey guys, this is what we want to make. And we clicked in a second. It was like, oh yeah, they totally get it. But then as we were developing the game, and obviously you start second guessing, like 1 year in, like, are they going to get it? And by them, I mean the audience and the
Mm,
press. Because nostalgia is obviously a disease, and
mm,
everyone's affected to one way or another. And like a year in, year and a half in, I was expecting to see a game like Wanted Dead being announced or released, and that didn't happen until very recently. I remember uh, playing Evil West, and I was like,
mm-hmm,
damn, this is exactly the thing I was talking about, because folks like me in my age group, they're producing games now. They're obviously nostalgic about their own gaming experiences, and they be bringing the sensibility to
mm-hmm.
the table. And suddenly we start seeing this in games that are being released right now, and I'm incredibly happy with with, as I said, games like Evil West,
Mm-hmm.
or say, I don't know, Metal Hellsinger.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like the stuff that we used to play 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But at the same time, an incredible example of a nostalgic title is Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
And everyone's talking about it right now, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is just like Dreamcast.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is that it has the feel of a Dreamcast game. Thank God it doesn't play like one.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
the same thing can be applied to Wanted Dead, is that it has a feel of a PlayStation 2 game, but it doesn't look like a PlayStation 2 game. And thank God it doesn't play like one.
It you are What you are saying are the exact thoughts that I had when playing through so far, and I'm not super far in, but I'm several hours in, and I've had the exact same feelings. It reminds me of PS2 and Xbox OG Xbox era, and but it's got modern sensibilities. And you're right, like our age group is primed for that. I enjoyed Evil West. I love Hi-Fi Rush. Like these are great experiences that and nostalgia is funny like that. I wouldn't want to actually play that on a Dreamcast controller. I wouldn't want to go back to a PS2 era game per se. And Wanted Dead seems to deliver on that feeling of retro might be the word, Sergey. We might be getting older, but it definitely feels like that era, and I'm having a blast with it so far.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's very nice when when like 3 years later somebody confirms that you were not mental. You started this all, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I remember a, a meeting um, with the staff and with the board when we decided to move the development to Japan. And literally a week later, um, because originally Wanted Dead didn't have uh, any sword fights in it. It was a third person shooter. Well, we conceived it as a third person shooter. And suddenly, oh, we have a sword.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
boy, do you have a sword.
yeah, suddenly we have a sword. Suddenly and there's stuff we can do with it.
Hmm.
Okay, how crazy can we get about it? And how acrobatic and violent we want combat to get now that we have a sword. Okay. And the cool part about it was um, sanity check, because nobody did that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, okay, it's Hong Kong. You have a white girl. She's a police officer. She has thick Swiss German accent,
Mm-hmm.
and she wields a sword. Like, no red flags? Okay, let's continue.
Wh-
And now, 3 years later, everyone's like, yeah, she's got a sword. What seems to be
mhm.
the problem?
It's what, and that sword, man. You do get to play with it. And I want any listener or viewer to realize that like that sword is a core element of combat. And I don't want to bury the lead here. You mentioned like finding the right team and finding the team, and smack dab in the middle of the Wanted Dead website, spectacular new hybrid slasher shooter from the team behind Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. And I feel that DNA when I'm playing, despite it not being those games, and that's cool.
Um, that is absolutely correct. And what happened is that we were introduced to a bunch of teams that were ready and willing to work on Wanted Dead. And one team uh, obviously stood out because of their pedigree. And when you look at the projects they put together previously as the team, and for example, the director on the project is the Ninja Gaiden director. The producer on the project is the Ninja Gaiden producer and Dead or Alive. And same guy is also the director and the producer of Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, which is which is important to keep in mind. And I remember that people were also uh, kind of skeptical. Well, not really skeptical, but they were definitely rolling their eyes when they read from the makers of Ninja Gaiden, Dead or Alive, and Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball in our
Hmm.
trailers and everything. And it's very important to mention, I mean, the beach volleyball thing, because uh, we wanted Dead to feel uh, very offbeat,
Hmm.
and to have that sixth generation sensibility. And someone, I believe it was Game Ranks or whatever other um, news source, coined the term a video game ass video game.
Yes, I use that term often, actually.
Yeah, and it perfectly applies to Wanted Dead. Is that we never wanted to make uh, the Citizen Kane of video games.
Hmm.
We never wanted to make the Dances with Wolves of video games. We just wanted to make a fun video game that is there as a video game.
Hmm.
Like it's something you would have been excited about 20 years ago, a game like this. So I really hope that we achieved that goal. I don't know. We're about to find out soon.
It's true. I guess you are. Now, I dig the idea that the game started off as a third person shooter and then morphed into kind of a hybrid hack and slash shooter uh, in the coolest ways. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like the combat philosophy. What did you want the shooting to feel like, blending with the sword kind of gunplay combo as the development went on?
Um, that's a great question. So, what you're looking at when we're talking about combat, what you're looking at is a battle system designed by Tomonobu Itagaki and then heavily perfected. Um, Not so long ago, there was a Wii U game called Devil's Third,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah,
I remember that. I remember it's hard to find, right? That was one of those like harder to find Wii U
yeah,
games.
it's actually the project was brilliant on paper.
Mhm.
It was brilliant while in development, but then so many things happened that it just failed to meet the expectations for so many reasons that probably deserves its own show. But essentially, the team already knew how to make a hybrid slasher shooter. Um, what we needed to do for Wanted Dead is to tighten up the core gameplay and make the transition from slashing to shooting almost seamless.
Mhm.
And it's not an easy thing to pull off because usually there is a compromise. So we needed to make sure that there is no compromise, and we focused on we primarily focused on two essential weapons in the game, which is the sword and the rifle, right?
Mhm.
And one of the reasons we don't have an abundance of other melee weapons is just we needed to get this thing right. So this is the sword, and this is the only sword you will have in this game.
Mhm.
Yeah, you will be picking up other firearms, but this is your rifle and this is your primary weapon, and
Mhm.
you will need to learn how to juggle between the two. And the other thing we did is we essentially um, made the handgun into a melee weapon.
Yeah.
So, and this is quite a novelty, and at the same time, 5 minutes in, and you'd be like, "Yeah, I always played this way. What do you mean
Mhm.
it never existed before?"
It feels so intuitive to and for listeners that that's almost like a heavy attack in some ways. It's not, but like you can just a quick tap and suddenly you've got your pistol out and you're popping people, and that is augmented with a lot of sword play, and you get yourself into these brilliant CQC moments where you can do all kinds of cool takedowns. Dismemberment is a factor of your sword gunplay combo. Um, as is a kind of blocking in the right timing, which I don't want to say it's Souls like because I don't want to send anybody down the wrong road, but there is a timing element to it that can hit a difficulty bar in just the right way, along with dodging. Like I'm describing the combat system now, but it's fun. It's really fun, and to bounce between sword, pistol, rifle so quickly and seamlessly in some moments makes for a really fun combat design. Can you talk a little bit about the dismemberment system and then the CQC elements where you're getting into that close quarters combat?
Um, so very early on, when we started development, I said that I don't want to ship the game with less than 30 takedowns
Whoa.
because originally we were originally to ship the game in 2022, and
Mhm.
I was standing there. I was like, guys, this is 2022, and nobody's doing this. I get it. It's a pain in the ass to animate all this to make it look spectacular on screen and make it fun, but we have to because we are essentially selling an experience, right? And whoever buys the game, I want them to feel our gratitude. And this is
Mhm.
the gratitude. Long story short, 30 takedowns became 50 takedowns.
There's 50 takedowns?
Yeah. And these animations constantly rotate randomly, but we made sure that there's always something new popping up, so you don't see one thing over and over and over and over again.
That's true. I guess haven't seen a lot of repetition. Uh, they're deadly and badass. I'll say that.
Well, thank you.
It's cool because Agent Stone, Lieutenant Hannah Stone, will do these moves straight out of the Matrix and then drop down and just pop people right in the head and then move right on. And there's a violence to it that feels very retro to that PS2 OG Xbox era, um, but also very kind of 90s in a way. Is there a 90s influence in this at all?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, right?
Hmm.
And obviously, Wanted Dead was influenced by all the stuff that we consumed in our early teen years.
Hmm.
So, all the cyberpunk anime that I could get my hands on, Cyber City 080 the New Dominion Tank Police, Ghost in the Shell, all this kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
then sprinkled with some Kill Bill on top. And then some more stuff. And obviously, there's a lot of John Woo influences in the game.
Yeah, that
And
is exactly what I was trying to capture there. John Woo. Yes.
yeah, the game is obviously influenced by Hong Kong action cinema of the like late 80s, early 90s. And at the same time, while working on it, we were trying to make sure that the um, Wanted Dead as the setting, the cyberpunk setting of Wanted Dead, doesn't feel like the stuff you constantly see in games like, say, Deus Ex,
Hmm.
Cyberpunk, um, Syndicate from EA, or whatever, so that
Classic.
it's something new. So that, well, not like new, but this is something that haven't been represented on screen in video games yet. A VHS cyberpunk, so to speak.
Man, that's neat. Now, you talked about 50 takedowns. What about the dismemberment system? Is there a way that that works certain ways? Because there are times where I will slice and dice these people to mess, and other times they're blocking me like crazy.
So there is an invisible stamina bar
Oh, okay.
um, that your foes possess, right? When you break their when you break their concentration, first you cut off the limb, and
Hmm.
then if you unlock the skill, you can follow up with the finishing move. If you didn't unlock the skill, um, the enemies that lost their limbs get even more dangerous. Yes, they're vulnerable, but at the same time, they're far more aggressive. And obviously, you get your um, last wish suicide guys that pull out the grenade last minute.
Hmm.
So you'd better watch the floor, what's going on there, while you're dealing with something else, because there can be a guy trolling right behind you with the grenade popped. And yes, this comes straight from Ninja Gaiden.
It feels straight out of Ninja Gaiden, in the best ways. As does the difficulty. Unless I'm really bad at games, which is happening the older I get, um, it feels like there's an intentional approach with difficulty. You get normal or hard to start. I started on normal, and I can feel this requires me to pay attention and stay in there despite being hack and slash.
Um, Balance in this game was a nightmare because we wanted to make sure that the game is challenging, but challenging enough for you to still have fun while playing it. So it's not like we were trying to make a Souls game.
Hmm.
No, We were just trying to make a hardcore action game that your regular consumers can pick up and master. Because although Souls went mainstream, and this is absolutely amazing, Souls games are not mainstream. And we were trying to do the opposite. We were trying to make sure that it's challenging, fun, but there's like no easy mode. Oh, wait a
Mhm.
minute, there is. If you get your ass handed over to you, um, like multiple times,
Mhm.
um, say I guess as far as I remember, like 3 deaths in a row,
Mhm.
like with very short in a very short time period.
Mhm.
We do provide an option to make the game easier. It's called the
Y-
Neko-chan Mode, and you will be cursed with wearing cat ears until the rest of the game.
Shut up. I have not seen this yet.
Oh, dude,
So if I enter that mode, suddenly I've got cat ears the rest of the game?
yes, you have cat ears for the rest of the game.
Oh, and every screenshot from then on would be cursed and people would know. Oh, that's so cruel and
Oh yeah,
awesome.
they will know how you beat the game.
Oh, that's cool. So when you're balancing, does that impact how you like weigh achievements?
No, not necessarily. It's more about hmm. It's more about giving a challenge that is
Mhm.
manageable by an average player.
Mhm.
And if you notice while you're playing, all enemy encounters are let me put it this way: they've been pre-directed for you. So it's not like, oh, suddenly we release 10 guys
Mhm.
in this room and you deal with it. No,
Mhm.
there's a lot of thought in the process of populating the world with the monsters, so to speak. So, and sometimes we needed to subtract, sometimes we needed to add
Mhm.
to make sure that we balance the encounters. So each encounter can be beat. It's sort of a puzzle you need to solve, you know?
It's so for any listener, I'm grinning because it felt like that. It felt like I was solving a puzzle. There were times early on where I would die and it'd be like, Th it wasn't cheap. This was my mistake. How do I reapproach it in a different way? And then a completely different approach in different moments led to a much easier encounter here and there. And, when you say it was like a puzzle, that seems to fit so perfectly with my gameplay experience, um, that it's a matter of figuring it out versus getting better, if that makes sense. Was that this so that was a
Yes,
conscious decision?
Jesus Christ, yes, this is exactly that. Because there is a very interesting thing that happens on the second mission. So when you get to the second boss, and suddenly you feel this incredible spike in the difficulty level. Trust me, there is no spike. You just haven't figured it out yet. So most boss battles are literally about how do I do it. It's not because we made sure that, oh, the blows don't register or anything like it. No, 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 no. You go down because you haven't figured it out yet. And as soon as you do, it's like, oh my god, that was so easy. They could have told me, you know. So
Mhm.
that's the idea about figuring it out.
That's cool. That
Thank
is
you.
cool.
That was a lot of work to make it fluid, and seamless.
We had a listener write in, and I venture to guess I could go with knowing your answer here. But famous Seamus wrote in. He said, "Is it hard to make your game stand out from all the other hack and slash games in the genre with so many iconic ones?" But I venture to guess he didn't realize that the Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden mindset or teams were working on Wanted Dead.
Actually, it's not really about hack and slash as
Mm-hmm.
the genre.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant challenge um, for any team working in any genre,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're making a game, you need to figure out a lot of things before you actually start making a game.
Mm-hmm.
There's ambition, and then there's reality, and these two things need to coexist. Also, creative freedom is nice when it's restrained in a way that the team can progress through the development process without the hiccups. So you constantly need to balance these things and make sure that you don't necessarily um, take the easy route sometimes, because Wanted Dead could have been a third person shooter game, like, say, Spec Ops The Line. It could have absolutely be its clone. Um, thank God we didn't pick the easy route, and we decided to, oh yeah, let's go reinvent the genre. How hard can it be? Well, obviously it wasn't that cocky, but um, any game developer today is constantly competing with the back catalog of some of the greatest games ever made, and not necessarily in the genres that they're making these games. So, as an example, I'm currently playing Lightning Returns Final Fantasy. I
Mm-hmm.
played this game before, but now that I can actually do it on Xbox Series X with FPS boost and all the upscale and everything, I really enjoy it. And I have no idea how hard it was to create the world that we um, get to explore in that game. And at the same time, how hard it was to reinvent the gameplay mechanics. And now, while I'm playing, I'm thinking, oh, what can I learn from the decisions that were made by the studio that was working on Lightning Returns? And how can I apply this to my future projects to make sure that it's always fresh and interesting and engaging? And I don't think I answered the question properly. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea here is that you're always competing. You're
Mm-hmm.
always competing with some of the best minds and some of the best creative talent that ever worked in this industry. And you just have to stay true to yourself, and you have to stay true to the audience, because the audience will always know when you were trying to mess with them. And if your product, your game, let's call it the experience, is sincere, and you are really given at all you got, I strongly believe that the audience will recognize it.
man, you guys you're launching in a super crowded month, and you guys talked about this before we hit record. You're launching in a crowded month, and yet you've got something that I think is super niche and yet polished and a blast. Is it hard to pick the right release date to help your work stand out? And you talk about it being sincere, and I mean, it is a sincere, it's a love letter to that memory, I guess, that we had of PS2 games. And I'm heaping praise on purpose. Like, I mean it. So sincerely, I genuinely love it. Uh, is it hard to pick the right release date to time the business element with the love factor and wanting to get that product out?
Well, originally we were to launch in Q4 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't. And I'm very glad that we didn't, because we started showing the game at so yeah, it was, say, August, September, Gamescom, PAX, Tokyo Game Show, and we did a couple of small trade shows in Europe. And we realized that the game could benefit from some more polish, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it was an incredibly hard decision to make. But
Scary?
we're like, hmm?
Was it scary?
No, it wasn't scary. It was because it was the right decision. It was like, let's polish it some more. And at the same time, there are realities of the release calendar. So I don't think we knew who was going out in February when we made the decision to launch on the Valentine's Day. I think that the month wasn't that crowded when we announced the date.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, um, we cater to a different audience,
Mm-hmm.
because, so for example, we launched together with Hogwarts. I believe
Mm-hmm.
Hogwarts drops on, like, what, the 11th, 10th?
Yeah, like just like 2 or 3 days before, and then there's early access and stuff. But like, yeah, like just a few days prior
Yeah,
to.
well, Hogwarts is an RPG game
Mm-hmm.
set in the Harry Potter universe that is obviously much beloved, but at the same time, not everyone's into Harry Potter,
Sure.
right? And when we're picking date, we're like, what is the right date for One Dead? And everyone was like, of course it's Valentine's Day, because the game is pink, everything in it is pink, the artwork is pink, it screams Valentine's Day in your face.
Mm-hmm.
If we knew what kind of competition we would have when we announced the release date, of course we wouldn't have changed our minds. Look, um, every month is crowded, so you got to pick your battles. And at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, thank God we're not in the movie industry. In the movies, you have your bum run in the theaters, and you
Mm-hmm.
have this, like, 2 weeks to make it or break it. It's different for video games. Video games are being sold years, sometimes decades after of the original release. And if we lose a few customers to Hogwarts, well, they'll be back later. We don't have a problem with that. And at the same time, we need to keep up with the momentum, because we have other releases that we haven't announced yet coming up.
Is that a tease, Sergey?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think that's a perfect spot to start winding down. Sergey, I want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you would like to point players to if they're picking up Wanted Dead? Something that you'd like them to check out in the game, and if they're on the fence, to tip them over the edge?
Well, let me put it this way. If you're having a problem beating the second boss, just figure it out.
Get good.
No,
Get
no, no, no,
good.
no. Not get good. Figure it out. It's so
There
funny.
you go.
So funny that you're saying get good because I remember when I picked up Bloodborne,
Mhm.
I remember I started playing it, and there's literally that first street with like 10 guys in it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
and I even if my life depended on it, I wouldn't be able to beat it. And I remember
Mhm.
calling my friends like, how? And he's like, well, you got to get good. I'm like, how am I supposed to get good if I cannot advance?
Mhm.
So no, it's not about getting good. It's about figure it out.
Figure it out. Well, there you go, man. Uh Guys, you can find Wanted Dead on all your Xbox platforms, on PlayStation platforms. I am so excited for your launch, Sergey. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.